We start today's deep dive by addressing something that's surfaced repeatedly on our social media. It's a shared frustration, and it really resonates deeply. Someone wrote in saying, I've been to therapy, taken courses, done the journaling, and waited for the right moment, but the minute I try to step into something new, everything falls apart. Am I missing something? Why does it feel like I keep hitting the same wall? Just let that sit for a moment. If you have ever felt like life betrayed your timing, like you returned with hope only to be met with collapse, this deep dive is really for you. Today, we're going to gently explore what truly happens when we reach for a new chapter, only to be met with a setback that feels, well, far too familiar. Through the heartfelt stories of two individuals, Bill and Sophie, we'll walk what's called the Pathway to Sovereignty. It's a transformative framework shared in an article by Helen Mudiba. And we'll discover how these moments, these unexpected pauses, they're not punishments, but rather pivotal invitations for a deeper unfolding. This framework helps us to truly see how emotional spirals can become portals to self-leadership, and how even our most confusing detours can guide us to a profound, lasting freedom.
Exactly. And what we're exploring today, this insightful model, is indeed the pathway to sovereignty. And the movement through it, that journey of integration, is often referred to as the staircase to sovereignty.
hmm It's helpful, though, I think, to think of these as distinct levels rather than, say, rigid steps.
Right, because it's not always straightforward, is it?
No, not at all. Our experience is rarely linear. We often find ourselves moving between them. Sometimes we revisit a level, maybe find a new perspective within one we thought would passed. Ultimately, this framework shows us how we can meet pain with profound awareness, and how we can truly rise without rushing the process, without pushing ourselves before we're ready.
And what a journey it promises to be. Let's begin with Sophie's experience. The article thoughtfully titled her story, The Returning Heart. So, before her particular setback, Sophie had dedicated 5 years to tending to her heart. I mean, really doing the work.
Inner work, therapy, journaling, all the practices that promise healing. And she genuinely felt ready to love again, convinced she was enough. She had declared her readiness, not just to the world, but really to herself, believing she had truly earned this space of openness.
That sense of having earned readiness, that's such a compelling human desire, isn't it?
It really is.
So Sophie met someone. He seemed genuinely emotionally available. And she allowed herself to lean in, to share her thoughts and dreams with, like, a new level of openness. There was a softness in her approach, a feeling that, okay, this is what true healing looks like. This is what it means to be authentically available for real connection. 2 weeks into this blossoming connection, she dared to voice her hopes for something lasting. She made it clear she wasn't there for casual games.
She put herself out there.
She did, and he even affirmed her honesty at the time.
And then the silence, that gut punch. He simply disappeared. No call, no message, nothing. Just ghosted. When something so deeply felt suddenly collapses like that, how does this framework, the pathway to sovereignty, describe that immediate raw experience, that first intense feeling of survival?
Well, in those first few days, Sophie's body went into a profound freeze response. Literally couldn't eat.
Wow.
Her heart felt like it was thrashing against her ribs, a real physical manifestation of panic. Her mind raced, replaying every single vulnerable word she had shared. Convinced she had revealed too much, that she was the reason for the abandonment.
What's that blame turning inward?
Immediately, shame just pulsed through her, connecting this fresh pain to every past instance she had felt left behind, every moment she had believed her needs were too big, too much. Her body physically shook, bracing for some deeper catastrophe. The key insight here in survival is that the system believes the threat is still active, it's still imminent.
That sounds absolutely debilitating. Like being caught in an emotional free fall, you could feel completely stuck there. What was the first tiny crack? What allowed Sophie to even consider shifting from that intense shutdown?
It was exhaustion, really, that finally nudged her. One evening, she just curled up on the sofa and wept. For the first time, she didn't try to rationalize it or fix it or silence the pain. She just let the tears come. She actually told herself, I cannot keep abandoning my own heart when it hurts. That quiet permission to feel the unedited pain, to meet it with awareness rather than resistance, that became her first turning point. It's that profound shift, isn't it? From fighting what's happening to simply acknowledging it. Feels counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful.
So after allowing that raw emotion, it sounds like her mind instinctively moved to trying to make sense of it all, to regain a foothold. How did that show up as she navigated the stability level?
Precisely. Her mind immediately sought narratives, stories to explain the chaos.
Right, trying to find a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just emotionally unavailable. Perhaps I should have known better. Or maybe I wasn't as healed as I thought I was. She crafted these explanations, just trying to soothe the profound panic. She talked to friends, replaying conversations, desperately searching for any evidence, any proof that it wasn't her fault.
Trying to get that external validation.
Yes. And while that external blame offered temporary relief, maybe a sense of control, the article points out it was also a kind of cage. She didn't feel truly free, just temporarily less afraid of the unknown, perhaps.
That drive for control and the stability level is so strong, though. It feels like such a natural human response. What was the catalyst for Sophie to truly loosen that grip? Was it one moment or more gradual?
It was actually a very specific moment. She was on a phone call with a close friend, and Sophie heard herself say, sort of half frantically, "I thought I was beyond this."
That feeling.
Yeah, and her friend's reply was so gentle, but pivotal. It resonated deeply. The friend said, "Maybe you are not meant to be beyond it. Maybe you are meant to be with it differently." Those words just warmed something in her chest that she didn't quite have language for yet. It was the dawning of a different way of relating to her pain, a softening of her resistance to its presence. The insight here is that true stability isn't about escaping the feeling, but changing your relationship to it.
That's a really profound shift in perspective. And with that softening, it sounds like she was maybe ready for the deeper work of the self-awareness level. What did she uncover as she ventured inward then?
Yes, Sophie began to journal, but this time without any censorship, without any audience in mind, just for herself. And what emerged surprised her. It's a powerful lesson, I think, for all of us. She realized that even in her vulnerability, a part of her had still been performing.
Performing? How so?
She had hoped, maybe unconsciously, that her honesty would guarantee acceptance, that doing everything right would somehow protect her from pain. And this profound awareness, surprisingly, it didn't bring more shame. Instead, it made her feel profoundly, honestly human.
Ah, I see.
The insight there is that self-awareness isn't just about identifying patterns, but understanding the why behind them. Even the subtle ways we might self-protect without realizing it.
That clarity, even if it's painful, sounds like it brought its own kind of relief. What actions did that new awareness lead her to take?
Well, instead of scrambling to fill the emotional silence, she allowed it. She actually deleted his number. Not out of anger, she realized, but as a deliberate act of self-respect.
Taking her power back.
Exactly. She accepted that she would probably never get closure from him, but crucially, she realized she could offer it to herself. She stopped compulsively checking her phone. She stopped performing healing, trying to look okay for others. She simply let the heartbreak be what it was, without needing to label it or fix it or make it disappear.
That takes incredible courage to just sit with it. And from that place of quiet acceptance, how did she begin to anchor herself in the integrity level?
This is where she truly solidified her commitment to herself. One morning, she sat down and wrote herself a letter, a really powerful declaration. She promised she would not betray her own needs again in the pursuit of love. She promised she wouldn't confuse openness with overextension.
That's a key distinction.
It really is. And she vowed that the next time she opened her heart, it wouldn't be to prove anything, but simply to share from a place of deep fullness, from overflow. That promise became her unwavering anchor. The insight from this level is that integrity isn't just about external actions. It's about that unwavering internal alignment with your deepest truth.
And from that anchor, what kind of new wholeness did Sophie begin to experience?
As the weeks passed, she felt a new kind of calm settle within her. It wasn't indifference, or shutting down of emotion. It was the profound calm of knowing she had shown up truthfully, that she hadn't shrunk herself to try and stay safe. For the first time, she truly deeply understood that being abandoned doesn't mean she is unworthy. It simply means someone else was unwilling or unable to meet her there.
That's such a powerful separation.
It is. It was a knowing that transcended the pain, allowing her to rest in her inherent worth, regardless of external circumstances.
Which culminates, for Sophie, in freedom. What did that look like for her?
Eventually, she looked back on the entire experience with an unexpected softness, and actually a profound gratitude.
Gratitude. Even for the ghosting.
Not gratitude for the pain itself, but for what the pain had so clearly revealed about herself, about her patterns, about her strength. She knew now, unequivocally, that love isn't something she has to earn, nor is it something that can be taken away by another's absence. It's something she is already inherently worthy of. This knowing felt like new wings forming, as the article puts it, ready to carry her not just through the next experience, but through life itself.
Such a powerful image, new wings forming. Okay, let's shift our focus now to Bill's journey. The article calls his story The Unseen Pattern. Bill had spent a decade in a job that had absolutely drained his spirit, just ground him down. When he finally saved enough to quit, he made this fierce vow. He would never again sacrifice his well-being for the sake of success. He envisioned a slower, more aligned life. He launched a passion business, an online shop selling merchandise from his beloved childhood football club. It felt deeply personal, free, completely aligned with his values.
He genuinely believed he was moving into an entirely different space, one where those old patterns of burnout and self-neglect simply couldn't follow him. And the first few weeks were electric. He was building something that truly mattered to him, was a source of joy. But then, as orders didn't materialize as quickly as he'd hoped, that old familiar anxiety began to creep back in.
Oh, that creeping dread. When you pour yourself into something new and it doesn't immediately take off, I think so many listeners can relate to that feeling. So when Bill found himself back in that old mindset, despite all his good intentions, what did the framework highlight about what was really happening, especially in that initial survival phase?
He started working 12, 14 hours a day, telling himself, if he just pushed harder,
Mm.
applied more force, it would surely turn around.
The hustle mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His body grew tense, his jaw clenched, sleep became scarce. And slowly, in this chilling realization, he understood he was just as depleted as he had been in his corporate job. It was the same exhaustion, the same frantic energy, just in a new container.
Wow.
The crucial moment for him in survival was one morning. He sat at his kitchen table and simply couldn't stop shaking. He felt like a complete failure, as if all his plans to do things differently were just illusions. His thoughts raced. You are no good at this. You have wasted everything. His body contracted in that familiar visceral panic. The key here is the physiological response to a perceived threat, even if the threat is internal, like the fear of failure.
That moment of physical collapse, that involuntary shaking, must have been terrifying, and many people experience that and just try to push through it, right?
Absolutely.
What was the first crack for Bill? What helped him shift even slightly from that intense survival state?
It was his partner. She placed a cup of tea in front of him and just said, very gently, you cannot keep proving your worth to yourself.
Hmm. Simple, but profound.
Right. Something profound in Bill just cracked open. He realized he hadn't left the hustle behind at all. He had simply carried it unconsciously into his new, supposedly free venture. That moment of dawning awareness, the realization that the internal landscape hadn't changed even if the external one had, that was his first true shift. It's about recognizing the pattern, even when it's cloaked in new circumstances.
That realization is incredibly potent. So from that space, it sounds like he moved into the stability level, trying to regain some sense of control again. How did that manifest for him?
Well, to feel safer, to try and soothe the panic, he began to externalize blame.
Like Sophie did initially.
Exactly. He blamed the economy, the marketing algorithm, his own perceived incompetence. He obsessed over research, convinced he could solve this through sheer force of will, through finding the right strategy. But no amount of external problem-solving or tactical obsession quieted that deep ache he felt inside. The insight here is that when we're seeking stability, we often chase external solutions. But true stability often comes from an internal recalibration.
So when all the external strategies weren't working, weren't fixing the internal feeling, what was the catalyst that helped him soften his resistance to stop just pushing harder?
It was late one night. He was utterly exhausted just scrolling, and he was reading an article about how our deepest patterns follow us until we truly meet them with a different awareness. And a single sentence just resonated with profound clarity, cutting through all his endless strategizing. Freedom is not found in changing your circumstances. It is found in changing how you relate to yourself.
Hits deep.
Yeah, he shut his laptop. He just cried. That was the loosening grip, the softening of resistance that opened him up to something deeper.
That kind of realization is incredibly powerful. It sounds like a big step into self-awareness. What painful truths did Bill uncover about himself then?
It was huge. He finally admitted to himself, really admitted it without judgment, that he was still equating his worth with productivity, that he was still trying to outrun this deep-seated fear that he was not enough, that he hadn't done enough. This clarity, though deeply painful to acknowledge, also brought a profound sense of relief. It's a key insight of self-awareness. The truth, no matter how uncomfortable, it brings relief because it dissolves the illusion we've been clinging to.
And once he had that clarity, that painful but maybe liberating truth, what did that lead him to do? What actions did he take?
Bill consciously chose to let the shop run on minimal energy. He stopped measuring his value, his success, by sales figures.
That must have felt terrifying.
Oh, completely counterintuitive to everything he knew. He made a deliberate choice for rest, even when every fiber of his being screamed that it felt like failure. He began to truly see that nothing external, no amount of sales, no level of productivity could ever prove he was worthy of peace. That was an internal knowing he had to cultivate for himself.
That's a massive pivot in mindset, a real turning point. And with that deeper understanding, how did Bill begin to live with genuine integrity?
He rewrote his business plan,
Hmm.
but not just on paper, in his heart. He decided to continue with the shop, yes, but only in a way that authentically honored his health and well-being first and foremost. He shared openly with his audience about his mission, not just for the products, but for how he intended to live and work, setting clear boundaries.
Being transparent.
Exactly. And even though nothing had changed externally, sales weren't suddenly booming, he felt remarkably lighter. He was finally aligned with his true self.
And this journey brought him to a new sense of wholeness. What did that feel like?
A quiet, steady pride began to return to him. He no longer needed to hustle to prove his worth, to feel deserving. He began to trust the process of slow, organic growth, and perhaps most importantly, he began to profoundly trust himself and his own inner compass, his own rhythm.
Which culminates for Bill in a true sense of freedom.
When Bill looked back, he understood that the setback, that period of intense anxiety and burnout in his new venture, it hadn't been a punishment at all. It had been remarkably a profound protection.
Protection, how so?
He was being asked, fiercely and faithfully, to build a life that truly belonged to him, a life built from presence, from genuine alignment, rather than from pressure or the echoes of old patterns. He had to break the old way to build the new. These powerful stories of Sophie and Bill, they truly highlight that the levels within this framework, they're not linear, not at all.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. We often find ourselves moving between them, maybe revisiting a level with new understanding. What truly matters is presence within each level, not some forced artificial progress. It's about meeting yourself where you are, with awareness, even when it's deeply uncomfortable.
So, as you listen, as you gently reflect on your own journey, perhaps pausing with each of these questions might be helpful. You might ask yourself, if you sense yourself in the survival level right now, feeling maybe overwhelmed and unsafe, what part of me feels in danger right now? If you find yourself in the stability level, trying to make sense of things, trying to regain control, what story am I telling myself to feel in control? If you're entering the self-awareness level, perhaps beginning to see deeper truths emerge. Where have my old patterns returned in disguise? As you consider integrity, that alignment of your actions with your inner truth. What truth wants to genuinely guide me now? In the wholeness level, embracing yourself fully, flaws and all, can I truly honor what I know, even when no one else understands? And finally, moving towards freedom. What would it feel like to rise without force, without needing to prove anything? Setbacks are not signs that we failed. They are profound signs that our old way of rising, the familiar strategies and patterns, they simply cannot carry our new evolving self. What collapses may actually be sacred. What breaks may be making essential space for new wings to form.
And this framework, this pathway to sovereignty, it's offered as a compassionate tool. For self-reflection, for deeper understanding, it is, however, really important to say not a replacement for professional therapy or clinical support.
Absolutely.
If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you find yourself struggling significantly, please reach out for professional help. Your well-being is paramount.
And if you'd like to delve even deeper into this framework, maybe explore these levels in your own life with more guidance, you can find a free PDF of the Pathway to Sovereignty on our website. It's there as a resource for your further exploration.
And just as a final thought, if you are here listening to these words, maybe standing in the wreckage of something you believed would finally be different, know this. You are not failing. You are being invited to meet yourself more honestly, more tenderly than ever before. And this very place is where you truly grow new wings.